Thank you very much. That was great. Tremendous. Super. We're going to move now to some of the earliest ski areas, and I think that, if I remember correctly, Alan Berry is going to talk a little bit about what's the actual name of the
It was the Eastport Ski Club. It was in Pembroke.
And just a little bit of history of this. I work at Milton Academy in Boston, and I coach the ski program down there. And I don't that often talk about this project down in Massachusetts, but I happened to be saying it to Mr. Berry. I coached both of his kids at Milton Academy, and he said, "Oh yeah, we had a ski club, Eastport, in 1950 and 51," and he gave me some footage, and I figured that it'd be nice to hear about that because maybe we didn't know too much about it. And he said he had some things. He sent it on to me, and then he would also like to come up and talk. And he was nice enough to come all the way up from. Well, you went from Milton to New Hampshire last night, and then all the way up to Maine. So, welcome. And some of the people may not know who you are, but we welcome you. Thanks for coming.
I feel very welcome here. Actually, my son goes to Bates, so we stopped up in Lewiston. My place is in New Hampshire, a little too far away to come. What Gene said about camaraderie meant everything. It more or less explained exactly what happened to us in Eastport. A little background, my folks, I wouldn't say they were lounge lizards, but they didn't know anything about skiing or sports or anything. And I'm a New Yorker. I don't wear that with pride. And why I ever got up to skiing, I don't know. I have no idea. But when I was 14 or 15, it's about 1930, I persuaded my father to buy me my first skis, and I was supposed to be that tall. We got them from Macy's and had toe straps. And I got a book, I think it was by Otto Schneebs, on how to ski. So in the local park, this was in Queens, Long Island, I would go down the hill and try to do stem turns from the book in toe straps. Well, from there I went up to Rensselaer and got into skiing in the Intercollegiate Outing Club and so forth. And during the war, I had no interest in getting back to New York, but during the war I was an engineer and got into Brooklyn to work. And as soon as I had an opportunity, I looked for work up in New England and found it in Eastport, Maine. And when I got up there to Eastport, I was from New York. And the people up in Maine were very cordial, but friendly. I would say as they looked in to see what I thought and looked at me very carefully, as you can, I think you can appreciate, and expected me to look sort of down on the nose at these boys were like just, that was a wrong impression. I was very much enthused to be there. Beautiful area, and I have a high regard for the people up in Eastport. Naturally, incidentally, when I was in New York, I became a member of the New York Ski Club, and there's about 80 or 90 members, very enthusiastic in racing. And I got an amateur instructor's certificate taught by Benno Rubisca, who some of you may know. He preceded Hannes Schneider at Cranmore. So anyway, when I got up to Eastport, my first thing to look around, where is there skiing? Well, of course, there was none in Eastport. And I didn't get to know the people very well until they finally said, "Hey, these guys, like this is all right." My family, I was up with my former wife and 2 young kids. And all of a sudden I was accepted and invited to parties and so forth, and mentioned skiing, and with the help of an enthusiastic backing of a few of the people in Eastport and an individual who owned a hardware store in Calais, was also very helpful. We formed a ski club, and I looked around. One of the men had a plane. We went up in the plane and to see where there might be a possible spot. There was a hill in Pembroke, right off Route 1. kind and said we were perfectly welcome to use it. She had a little cabin, a little house up on top of the hill, which was our ski cabin. So we formed a club, and I think I said maybe we had 10 or 15 members. And we did a little bit of clearing. We didn't do much. We found someone who had an old truck. And then a good friend of mine, Hannes Schoppenberg, who was in the ski troops, came up to Eastport, and he was an engineer. And between the two of us, we somehow figured out how to make a rope tow. And the manager of the owner of the hardware store donated the rope. He was happy to see this area develop because he had 2 kids who was interested in getting skiing. So there's much more to say about it, but we cleared the brush. There was, in the middle of the hill, there was a line of large trees. That's kind of significant to the story as I continue on it. So, and that's, Pembroke is sort of close to the ocean, and we don't get the snows and the weather that you get further inland. But we did get enough snow. So the first day, I think we charged 50 cents a day or something, and $5 per membership. And we scrounged skis around, and some people wrote and got skis. We got these kids 8, 12 years old. We opened it up. First time we had snow, of course, I tried to get all the announcements in the papers that we were opening on January, February, whatever day it was. And I don't know how many of you know about Eastport, but it is isolated, very isolated. And first day we were there, I think maybe we had a dozen people on the hill. But the road was lined all the way up with people to watch. It was something to see. So we had a very successful season. It wasn't much of a hill, it's only a couple of 100 feet high. But we were able to teach the kids and the parents how to ski. And the proper method of skiing, getting them started. And I went back to Old Home Week about, 3 or 4 years ago with it. And people would approach me on the street and say, "Oh, I remember our skiing," because their children now skiing. And it just was a tremendous satisfaction to have developed this little area and gotten people interested, and the camaraderie. And just being in sports like the old days. Today, of course, skiing is too much of a business. And it's not like we used to know it many years ago. So I only stayed in Eastport for a couple of years and then went back into Massachusetts. But what happened to the ski area is, when I left, I said, under no circumstances, cut those trees down. They wanted to make it a big wide open slope. I said, don't cut those trees down because the sun, it was shaded. I mean, it was where the skip points to the north, fakes the north. And the sun would, the trees would keep a shadow on the slope, the snow. But no, they cut the trees, and in doing some of the work on a tractor, the owner of the hardware store in Calais was killed. A tree fell over on him, and that sort of just died. And that was the end of the ski area. So it only existed for about 2 or 3 years. But the association and being with the people and getting together as a group was just an experience I'll never forget. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate that. We all have memories of skiing and other memories we have of our childhood. My memories of about 1960 to 1963 in Rangeley, Maine. We lived in Rangeley, Maine. I have a lot of great memories about that period of time. And when I think about skiing, I certainly think about what I would consider certainly to be one of the great Maine ski instructors is Roger Page. So I've invited him to come today to talk a little bit about Saddleback and Rangeley and the early days of skiing up in that area. So welcome.
Well, thank you very much. And we had a little trouble getting here today, and I think I've run out of gas twice in my life. This is one of the trips down in Wayne. But the history of skiing at Saddleback, I don't know how I'm going to begin when Jeff asked me. There's so many things I've forgotten, and I haven't been involved in managing the ski area, that it was pretty hard to put it together, so I don't have anything really formal, except I dug in the old manager's reports and the stock offerings and how we started, and try to put it together. But how I arrived in Maine was two or threefold. In Stowe, I was involved with coaching the junior program, and we came over to Sugarloaf in 1957 on a race. And that was our first look at Sugarloaf. No, I'll take that back. That was our second look at Sugarloaf. The first look was in 1955 when Sugarloaf had a road in there and nothing else. And I used to take Patsy, my wife, and my two children. We lived in Stowe then, on little Sunday jaunts, where I'd say, well, now we'll go over to Sugar Bush. They're talking about an area there. We'll take a little ride over there, and then we'll go up to the Northern Kingdom. Oh, it's, what the name escapes me now. It's right on the Quebec border. Jay. We'll look at that, and we'd go over there, and like, oh, there'd be bear tracks in the road. But I said, well, now we'll run over to Sugarloaf, because I heard that they have the deepest snow in the east, which they do have. And I said, it's a little drive. I looked at the map. It's not too far. We had two kids in diapers. In June. Incidentally, the Minges started biting in Rangeley last night officially. But anyway, we went to look at Sugarloaf and came through Kingfield. We were unaware about black flies. We had a few over there, but not like they had there. So when we go to get out, we were eaten alive. So I remember Patsy saying, well, it might have a lot of potential, but I don't think you'll ever get me to live over there. But you keep trying, eh? So in '57, it just so happened that we had this Eastern race. I was coaching, and it was right during the February vacation, and we were busy in Stowe. Patsy used to be on ski school desk, and the school teacher was supposed to chaperone the one girl we had, Lena Gale. Do you remember her, Pat? And so, for some reason, they sprung Patsy to be the chaperone for the one girl. So it was a pleasant experience this time. We had a babysitter for the kids. We came over to the race. This time she could see something. They had two lifts. She didn't have anything to do. Lena, was a perfect gal. So she became acquainted with Judy and Lang Warren, and she loved it. Wintertime, no black flies. And Judy and Lang told us about the wonderful real estate and the good prices. So I figured it's time to look around. We came back in '57. This was '57. We came back that summer, or early summer, found a place up on Freeman Ridge that Harvey Boynton showed us, and we bought the place, and moved over. And the reason that I left, I was about my middle 30s, and I looked around in Stowe. I'd been teaching there 11 years, and I was the greenskeeper on the golf course, and I felt I'd gone as far as I could in Stowe. I mean, I said, well, now there's Seth. He's got the best job here, and that's general manager. One thing I don't want to be is a general manager of a ski area. So anyway, that's what I felt. I want to have my own ski school and ski shop. So this is how we came to move. We sold our place and came to Sugarloaf originally. Now my involvement with Saddleback was the first year, the year of the big snow. You remember that year where they had to dig down to the ski club hut. And these are names I'm going to put out. You probably, some of you know, some of you don't. But Dick Bell had arranged a private lesson with Sam York of York's Log Village over in Rangeley. So I had this private lesson. Sam didn't know too much about skiing. What can you do in an hour? We did some uphill turns, and we spent the hour. And this was in January. And I don't know how many of you knew Sam, but he had a great sense of humor, and he had a laugh that you always recognize. About March, he came back again, and he said, hey, Rog, he says, I think I got to have another lesson. And I said, oh, what did you do after the last one? Did you practice? No, he says, I thought I took a lesson from a fellow that knew what he was talking about. I learned everything there was to go about skiing, so I went over to where you came from, Stowe, and I tried to get down from the top of the mountain. What he was doing was learning to ski so we could go around these other areas to see how they were operating. So we talked, and then he started talking about Rangeley. Now, Rangeley's situation is commercial. It's tourism and has been since the turn of the century. They have a great summer business. In fact, it was even better, I understand, when the trains came in there. You had a wide gauge that you could get on a sleeper from Philadelphia, from New York, and come and spend the summer. You had a narrow gauge that came from the other way, over through Phillips and there. But all that went out, and then here Rangeley was trying to survive on strictly a summer business. So they were just, the melding of a winter area and a summer area was their goal. So he said, we're trying to get a ski area going and Saddleback, and I thought, gee, that's great. And Stowe was the same thing. You had a ski area, but you didn't survive on one season. They tried to put a summer business over there. They had a golf course, but you didn't have enough to try to make it in one season. So this was a natural to have the two seasons come together. So anyway, that was my introduction to Rangeley. He said, now we're going to start Saddleback Mountain. It's a big mountain. It's 4,100 feet high, and we're going to have we're going to form a corporation, and I'd like to have you come over. So I went over, and this was May. We'll get into the history of it now. May 12, 1958. It was a local group, strictly a local group. They all had $100. I had $100, so I came. I listened to it all, and then I bought $100 worth of stuff. Well, that first summer they sold, I know these things probably will bore you, just like statistics on alligator eggs. I'll tell you about that sometime. But anyway, the money they picked up or sold that first summer was about $24,000. Strictly with no salesman, with nothing, just their own efforts, which wasn't enough. And it was very interesting. They had a breakdown on the next prospectus where they had hired Sel Hanna. Now get these figures. Sel Hanna laid out the initial phase of Saddleback Mountain, which involved the chairlift, 2 T-bars, and the trails, for a sum of $653. In 1958, I was reading through the first prospectus, and they had hired 2 assistants to sell, one at $11.92, and the other one at $43. I think Oscar was one of them. I was asking him on the way down whether he was the $33 man or the $11 man. But anyway, that's how it started. Well, they bogged down and they wanted to go further. And Harlan Kidder was then president of it, Alman Hodgkins, vice president, Bonnet Robbins, vice president, Dr. Fichtner, who I was pretty well acquainted with, was the treasurer. So he talked me into going on the road and licensed me to sell stock and go on the road in the state of Maine. I said, I've never sold anything. You know, I'm a ski instructor, green ski, I don't think I'm selling. Well, he said, would you try? I said, well, okay. Now, the place to start in my mind was Farmington. Farmington had been organized a long while. There were skiers down there. I had a list this long of people to call on. Went down into Farmington, and we were amazed how much we sold. They were very receptive. They were all skiers. So I said, okay, yeah, I'll do it. So I went on the road that year of 59. Of course, we didn't raise enough money. You know, this is strictly common stock. Selling Blue Sky. So, you know what that is. So anyway, what to do? But again, another thing, Rangeley's not the type of place where you can have one of things. Remember, it's commercial and it's competition. I mean, like it's any town that's been, you know, in the business. You can't start with one area. No, we had to have two to start with. So Ball got the jump on us, Ball Mountain, and started before we did so. Of course, that split things. It's kind of difficult. So this is the way it was. It was difficult with two ski areas. 4 churches, a liquor store, 4 gas stations. You had, when I started a ski shop, 8 shops. But anyway, we decided, well, we'll have to do something to get things going. And the way I believe, because my background in what I wanted to do, I started at the very beginning on a ski club level instructor. This is how I decided this is what I wanted to do. I loved to teach. After I learned how to turn and stop, then I wanted to help other people, and I started in Massachusetts in the Lemus Ski Club, Fitchburg Ski Club, walking up the hill, didn't have a toe, and that's when I decided that this is what I wanted to do. I first went out west, and you know, this was right after the war, and got a ski school in Glenwood Springs, right on the door to, but ski area wasn't built, just like Saddleback, had to build it. But anyway, that back, I'm bouncing around, but then back, and then I worked for Seth. And anyway, I'm going to lose my train of thought if I keep rambling on. But anyway, a ski club is the way to start. This is where you get your people who ski. This is where we get your instructors from. So I think I talked to Oscar and Barbara, his wife, and we formed the Rangeley Ski Club in 1959. And the history, I've been hearing about little areas here, and it started, when did it start? Gene said, how many years old is skiing? And here I thought all along that in Rangeley, there was Ball Mountain that started before us, and I knew there was a rope tow on Hunter Cove. And in riding down today, Oscar said, yeah, but that was also at the Cemetery Hill before that. So you see, it started early, these tows, just rope tows, and then they'd die out. So anyway, I think we melded the town by getting the ski club started, and of course we wanted to go on racing, and that's just what we did in 59 and 60. I sold some more stock, directors sold stock, and finally we got going as a commercial, as a ski area, officially opened on December 31st, 1960. Interesting again, the figures I have in my mind on that. We charged $3.50 for an all-day ticket and $2 for a half-day ticket. Remember, this is 1961. Gross receipts when we had the 8 shops, 4 churches, and 2 ski areas and so on. Gross receipts for the mountain that year was $7,800. That included the ski school, the ski shop receipts, and the cafeteria receipts. Naturally, we had a loss. $17,000. Didn't cost much to operate that. It cost us $25,000, took in $7,000. Good deal. So you can see what great money you make in the ski business. I think you get it because you're emotionally involved. But anyway, some of you remember, I know Dana was up there and Pat was up there, and I think Wes probably came up and visited us. You remember the first area we had there? We started with one little single T-bar, then January opened the upper T-bar, but we had a practice slope. Half of it was unskiable. We could only ski half of it. We had one trail, the top of the upper T-bar, which opened in January, the Great Ghost Trail, and we had a great ski patrol. They flagged every obstacle. You couldn't get down the hill. It was all flags and stuff. And one old logging road, the Hudson Highway, was the other trail. And that's the way we started. Well, they decided after the operational year of '61 and that loss, we've still sold some more stock. And then I had hired, I was running a ski school and I wanted an assistant. So I had hired Ray Brahaney, I don't know if you remember him, from Stowe, who was a ski patrol, on the ski patrol, come over. And he worked for me that first winter, and he could turn around those stumps. He did a great job. He was good with everyone. And everybody took a liking to him, and they wanted a manager. Because the first year, Spike Kidder, the president, managed the area. And he didn't want any part of it after the first year. But Ray was a skier, and a young fellow and full of enthusiasm, so they hired him. I didn't want the general manager's job. So Ray was hired as general manager. Now, he did a lot there. He got the bulldozing done. He cut another trail. But always there was that little tantalizing chairlift that we had to have. That was the goal, was to get that chairlift in. In fact, that's one of the first things they cut when they got to the mountain. They cut the bottom of that thing. So you'd be skiing and you'd be looking up that chairlift line. So he got that all done and did a whale of a job in 1962. And he was enthusiastic about the chairlift. Chairlift would make sense in Rangeley because you had a summer business. You could do summer rides at the mountain. You could tie 2 seasons together. But chairlifts were expensive, $78,000. How much today? But anyway, we didn't have it. So more prospectuses and out on the road selling stock, but we still didn't come up with it. And by then they had new directors. Some of them, of course, lived in Rangeley, and they were sympathetic to Rangeley. They wanted to get this great ski area going with a chairlift. So they would take out notes and this and that, and we're in debt. And then somebody got a bright idea, well, we'll borrow some money. So they asked me then. Ray had left. He'd spent a year at it. Wanted me to be general manager. Oh boy, what are you going to manage? But anyway, I started in as general manager in 1963. They decided to borrow the money. It's the same thing today, creative, innovative financing. We borrowed $142,000 from James Talcott, who was a finance company, at about 9 or 10%. They asked me to make a projection to pay for that thing. I made a projection out, went down to the accountant in Portland. He was very nice. Took me to dinner at the Cumberland Club. We never talked about the ski area. Then he took me back to the office and says, okay, Rod, let's see that prospectus. So I showed it to him. He said, my God, we won't get a nickel on this. Here, I'll make up one. And that's what you did when you went to a bank and you wanted to borrow money in those days. You got it looking good on paper. Now, it would have worked, except for one thing. If you have an area with an average snowfall of 140 inches, that's fine. It'll keep snowing like that until you start a ski area. Now, we borrowed the money. Directors went on guarantees. Oh, we did everything to get that chairlift in. We got it in. We worked all summer. We cut the chairlift line. I remember that. I wasn't involved with any of this stuff before. I don't mind hard work. We had no equipment. Everything was on a shoestring. We cut, the chairlift line had been cut, so we started to cut it wider, started to cut the trails. Had to do a lot of cutting. This is, you know, like every ski, you decide you gotta go, you gotta move. This was in April. We started cutting and burning. We hired a Canadian crew to cut and burn by the acre. It started to get late in the May. Snow started to disappear. And I think those Canadians thought if they could burn all the mountain down, they'd get paid for it. Not really, but we had a fire that scared the death out of all of us. In fact, they were cutting the chairlift line, and the fire warden was on his way to shut us down when a crown fire broke out. And oh boy, I'm telling you, what's a mountain? Ball, you know, another Ball Mountain or two. But anyway, we got the fire out, and I know we were days watching it. But it was a big struggle because we had no equipment. We had one bombardier. That was it. And Collins that was putting the cement in had that most of the time. We did everything by hand. And we got the chairlift. Oh, no snow, I said. Right. The biggest snowstorm we had was 1963. October 12th when the steel landed. And we had raw bulldozing. The steel landed, we had to plow the road. Then we had to get the steel up to the mountain. Like an erector set, we'd haul it up. Still got a lump on the shoulder from carrying it. We put it up with a Swiss overseeing it. Albert couldn't speak a word of English. Wynn remembers this. Oh God, these are things, they're funny and they're not. We had the concrete poured on what, 9 form. This is in concrete steel to put the towers on. You had 2 bolts, 2 bolts. The towers come up above it, you bring them in place. Albert comes up, he can't speak much English, but he learned right then. Got the thing all ready to go, got it all hooked up, and he looked, and he said, "Cheese!" And he goes up, and they all like this, are they all like this? Collins, not his own fault, just a simple mistake, had reversed the form, and the bolts didn't line up, they were just the opposite. Here we were going to put them up. But Wynn came to our rescue for about $1,200 or something like that. We went to A.B. Dick, made it better footing.
Made a base.
Made it better, made it stronger. And so that's how we got started. Going on and on too much, all our problems. But anyway, and like I said, we got it going, and then it didn't snow. Yeah, we got it all up. I have history of the operation of that chair. We operated the whole ski, the other 2 lifts. We normally would have 120 days of operation. We got 93. The chairlift operated 35 days. Now we got those $29,000 payments coming up. So anyway, we got into the summer business. We were broke. We went out and sold in advance lifts, tickets to ride the chairlift that summer. Actually, the summer operation paid off. We could make our payments. We could pay the payroll, 3 men, and finally we had 4, because what we did, we operated the chairlift in the afternoon, we did our bulldozing and our trail work in the morning. And it made money that year. I mean, that up until August. We were all right. We hadn't done anything all winter, but we did for that summer period for a couple of months. But then when this was now 64, when that following winter came, then we were out. We formed another corporation. That's what you do. I know people, Sugarloaf, know what you do. It's a hard thing. And we try to borrow money from the SBA. We put in new management. I resigned because I said, boys, I didn't want to start, but we got going so far, and I was kind of had it. I had my own 2 businesses, and I felt somebody else might be able to do it better. We had someone run it that following season, and still we were so far in the hole that and then in the spring of the year, advertised the Saddleback was for sale for $140,000. And this is when it started to go the other way. Dick Arnzen and Dick Berry bought it. This was the second set of owners in 1965. They bought it for $140,000 because actually we were in such a state that I know Joe Homan and I made a flying trip to Portland to throw an injunction on that, so Werner Wagner wouldn't come and get the lift. And he told me, he's Swiss, he said, I don't care about your injunction. When I come to get that lift, you have to shoot me to stop me. I'm taking that lift. But anyway, they bought it, the two of them, and they started to turn around. They in turn sold it to the Gannett Publishing Company, and then you started to see things happen. At Saddleback, very exciting. They put in another new chairlift, the lodge, trails, road, hardtop. The road was no longer mud. I can tell you stories about those roads, right, Oscar? When we first started, we'd say, you can ski here in the spring, but you've got to come at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning and stay till the freeze is over, because you won't get out. You remember that? And then out selling stock, and somebody said, Saddleback cost me $300 when I went up there. And I bottomed out, man, it towed me in and ruined my whole car. Well, it's good. It's a good thing you can laugh at yourself. But it turned around. I'm trying to bring you the history and up to date. And everything was planned. Saddleback would have been going a lot sooner. Dick Arnzen was a wonderful person. He ran that from the time they bought it. They sold it to, he and Dick Berry bought it, sold it to the Gannett Publishing Company. They ran it, they did everything you see up there, and he spent a lot of money in planning it to its full potential. But then he died. And Dick Arnzen, like John Christie, John had gone down to Mount Snow, and after he died, the Gannett Publishing Company sold the mountain to John Christie. And John would have done it. Gee, he had Hudson land, and he started to build condominiums, and he was working great. But the oil embargo, 1973, wiped him out. The banks no longer listened to little stories. The banks started to get tough. And so John didn't make it. Condominium owners then were the next owners. They didn't want to run a ski area, but what they could do, they had condominiums and no ski area running, so they formed a management team, ran it, and then finally, all these things take time. I think it was about 10 years ago that they sold it to Donald Breen. And I'm excited about it. Again, it's turned around, it's coming, we're going step by step. He's a type man. I know you've heard all kinds of bad press about, the Appalachian Trail didn't want us up there, and how this man was raping the mountain and all this stuff. If you knew Donald Breen, you'd know what I'm speaking about. He's a very quiet, slow-moving man. And he has the wherewithal. He bought the mountain. It was strictly leased land before. He bought the 12,000 acres, and he's only going to develop just there. His situation now is the way he operates. He'll build 3 condominiums. If they sell them, he builds 3 more. You've heard they're going to have 500 condominiums up there. They're going to ruin it. You hear that in town, But that's 30 years down the road. I mean, it's going to go step by step and slow. And this is the way it's being run today. I don't know how I survived. But, I mean, you stick with it, I guess. You stick with it. It's exciting, sometimes too exciting. The economy that they started out to turn around is finally turning around. They found Rangeley. They're building around the town. I'm in business on the mountain and in town. I'm 65. I'd like to take it easy. I can't. We get all kinds of business now in the summertime. Some of those summer months are as good as the winter. I don't know. This is what our goal, and it's just growing. It's growing. but with growth, we're having problems too. I think. Myself, I'm not a big subdivider of land, but everything is growing around us, and with problems. You're going to have our taxes have gone up. You know, you've heard these things before, but there's problems with it too. But I think it's successful today, and I thank you very much. We finally had our angel fly in, and this is what we needed. A ski area takes somebody with the patience. It doesn't have to have his dollar right back today. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't bore you too much.
Hey, didn't mention how cold it is, right?
It is cold.
Was what Ray Verhane was doing in the early 60s, was it pheasant shooting? Did I remember?
No. Okay. I'm going to tell you about that because Danny Case said the same thing. The Austrians had a little play, Wes knows about this, called Pheasantschub. It means play with the feet.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks that he was teaching a pheasant shooting term. Pheasantschub. It came from the Austrians. Yeah.
But he did bring that over, though.
Oh yeah, Pheasantschub. Yeah, he learned it from the Austrians, and he did the Pheasantschub. And Danny Case said the same thing. What was that pheasant shooting he used? I said, no, that's the Pheasantschub. I don't speak German, but I was around a lot of them, and it was fun. I learned a lot from them.
I'd like to bring Oscar Riddle up while we have the opportunity and to continue on some of the Rangeley stories. He used to live next door to him in the early 60s, so I remember him quite well. Oscar, come up.
I know. You went to sleep.
You're almost there, sitting there, look. Well, we won't sit very much longer, huh? Hi there. Yeah, back in the old days in Rangeley, the first of my skiing was down at the Ellis Town, and it was all straight downhill. My father had a pair of skis made for him. He and his brother had a pair of skis. They lived in Monson. So this Finnish person gave him these 9.5-foot skis. And they were light, they were birch, straight as you put them on the floor, you know, and they'd be standing up. There'd be enough arch in them, and they were regular cross-country skis. And that's what we used down at the Ellis Farm. We could start from the old farmhouse and ski towards the lake, right straight down. And we used to do that Sundays. Then, I still get the skis, the bass on them, hanging in my garage now. And it used to be a lot of fun. But I think the best part of the skiing that I remember was when we first formed the ski club in Rangeley. Roger and Spike Kidder came up to me, and I was in the town office there. They had been someplace and come home one afternoon, and he said, "We got to form a ski club." And that was the way it was done. We got the ski club together, and all the children signed up. The parents were very enthusiastic about it, and we got the kids skiing on the ball diamond. First, they would just skate, learning to walk, and then they would get down over the edge of the bank and get a little more confident. And we had at that particular time, soon after we first started it, to get it going a little bit, and got a few lessons in. Roger was coming over from Freeman Ridge on Saturdays just to
teach the kids. And then the superintendent, Alonzo Tuck, I guess he was probably 65 or 70 or so at the time, but he was very, very enthusiastic about it, and he says, sure, we'll get these kids up on the mountain somehow. And turned out that he got it so that they could get out of school on Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock, and we'd have 10 or 15, 20 cars down there with the parents would show up, or a wife or a husband or something to pick up these 6 kids going up the mountain in each car. And I have an old truck and to haul all the skis up, and then get up there and they'd bail out, and they'd have a lesson up on the mountain, and we'd come back down. We were going back and forth there all winter long. We had all kinds of snow at those times, but that was really a lot of fun. The thing that Roger and I were speaking about coming down, because my memory didn't serve too well when he talking about dates, is that we ought to get this stuff written down on paper and keep it. Like, in a certain year that somebody did such and such, well, because I enjoyed Edith Curtis' speech about Ted, because I skied to Ted, and then I got some pictures out here in an old scrapbook my father kept, and pictures of Bill Bauer and John Bauer, and it was, as Roger and I came down there, we couldn't quite remember when the ski tow operated down in Hunter Cove, but I did know it was on Davor Hill. But we in turn sold the ski tow when the Saddleback opened up, and we sold that to Skowhegan. Skowhegan took that and hauled it over there. But as Mr. Derry said, when we get the kids all excited about this thing and wanted to ski, then the parents get interested. And what happened was, we built a little, in the garage downtown, we built a cover for the rope tow, and before they hauled it down to Ellistown. But they took it down to Ellistown, hauled it up there, and set her up good, got it going, and there was more people, as he said, lined up the road on the hill, looking up the hill, watching the kids ski. That was half the fun of it, was having all these people watching the kids skiing. But what I enjoyed, what was it? You spoke about snow trains.
Oh, yeah.
I can remember going from Bangor to Greenville, but I don't remember where we skied. We went up there, and then we got off it.
Just beyond
we
the town.
walked.
Just beyond the town, there was a little hill.
Over to Brownville or someplace that way, Brownville Junction. But it was all walking uphill. But after we got our rope tow and the kids all got interested, that really built the thing up, and we had a lot of fun. But it seems that I've got a tape that was made from Sam York's old pictures. He took a lot of pictures around Loon Lake, and they were breaking roads up to Loon Lake from Rangeley and up towards what the Yorks lived at the farm. And you'll see these great big old gasoline tractor with a V-plow with wings on it, going through these monstrous snow banks. My God, they must be 10 or 12 feet high. And that's when we had to lot of a lot of snow. It seems now that we just kind of got to have a snowmaker.
Yeah, you have to have snow.
Bridgeton didn't have any snowmaking for a long time, did they?
A lot of people did,
Yeah.
Oscar. Except my old boss, just one, not interrupting, but it was always snow in Stowe. This was the theme. In fact, I taught there 11 years, and I never had Christmas off till I came to Maine. And that year, everything got wiped out. And later, maybe it was at Sabasco Estate. Remember we went down there together, Oscar, or some eastern thing? And I talked to my old boss, Seth. Here's another wonderful Oscar with a great sense of humor. You have to be with he and Steve that sense of humor. I said to Seth, we put in snowmaking at Saddleback on the practice slope, so we're sure people can see some snow and we can operate over Christmas. He said, I never put in snow at Stowe. There's always snow at Stowe. He put it in. Herbie Snyder did the same thing. He made that statement to me, that he'd never put in snowmaking. If you don't survive. And this year pointed it out. You have to put in snowmaking if you're going to be in the ski business. But anyway, sorry, Oscar.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. Of course, I've lived there all my life, and as I can remember it, we always had plenty of snow. But in just recently, not too long ago, 1960, 61, we didn't have much snow. Things froze up early. God, the ice was good. And
Get your ice boat out.
and Fred Condon and I had a solid month of good ice boating. Yeah. But I still look back at those times when, who was it? John Bauer asked me to come down to Auburn to stay with him one weekend. And he took me over to Bridgeton. And he loaned me a pair of skis to take, because I left mine up at college. And we got over to Bridgeton, it was glassy, oh God, it was glassy and hard. And I think I fought with those skis that didn't have any edges for 6 months before I could get home. Oh, that was the most tiresome trip I ever put on my life. But that was the first time I ever got tangled up with no edges on riding. Thank you.
Oscar, we have some of the starting lists. Ted Curtis has some starting lists that I remember us going through them. They have your name on it. We have them here. You might be interested in looking at them a little bit later. We're going to go with one more speaker, then we're going to break for lunch. And please don't leave, because hopefully this afternoon we'll be able to get into some of the other stories that are really important, give everybody a chance to talk. Everybody's heard of Wendell Chummy Broomhall. I've never met him till today, and I'm really excited. I guess I'd have to say I'm honored to have him here, and hoping that he'll come up and speak a bit on the Rumford ski area or whatever he wants to talk about.
Well, I guess we can all ramble on for hours on old stories of skiing. I think most everybody in this room grew up in probably the best span of time we possibly could have grown up. At least that's the way I look back on my life anyway. In Rumford, back in the early 30s, the Norwegians like everywhere else, came in to work in a paper mill, and they formed a ski club. I always was told that they formed the ski club in 1923, and I guess they officially did. But I got some of this information from people in town, and they actually started an outing club in 1916. It was a snowshoe outing where they just got together and hiked out and had a picnic lunch and came back. And World War I came on, and nothing happened, of course, and it all started with Einar Sorensen, who with many of his friends formed the Chisholm Ski Club. Hugh Chisholm was the one that came in and built a power plant and a paper mill, and they named the ski club after him, of course. And they built the ski jump, and Orel Legier is here with me today. And back in them days, there was little ski jumps all around town. And Orel had a number of them that he made. The one that we had near where I lived, we called Pete's Shoe. And we could jump maybe 50 feet on it. It was always funny, and I look back on it. We started up in a grove of hemlock trees, and it had a curve in the trail. Boy, when you hit the end of the takeoff, you had to be on your skis, or you might end up out in the pucker brush there somewhere. So those were back in the good old days when coffee was a nickel. Nobody had the nickel. We managed. We had little ski meets back then where we gave out jackknives and chewing gum and little things like that. Just made our own fun. And then they brought in cross-country skiing. The high school had back then, as somebody mentioned earlier, there were winter sports teams. We had snowshoeing, 100-yard dash on snowshoes, and a mile snowshoe race, 100-yard dash on skis, and a 3-mile ski race. Then they had a mixed relay, 2 snowshoers and 2 skiers. And they had speed skating. The fact is, we had some really good speed skaters in Rumford. The names that I think of in speed skating, getting away from skiing a little bit, was a reserve from Auburn and a kid by the name of Sear from Caribou, and the Shred Boys from Rumford. They went on and won what they used to have as a national program, Silver Skates Derby. They were all champions in that field. And of course, Rumford, at one time, they built a ski jump right in the middle of the town, and they advertised it, and it was true at the time, it was the biggest ski jump east of the Mississippi. I don't know where they had a bigger one out west, but they had one out there somewhere. And they had all the top Norwegians, and I remember when I was a little kid, when Orel and I were little kids, these guys like Anders Hagen, these names probably don't mean anything to you people, but Anton Lee Kang and Anderson and Harold Sorensen, and could go on and on, name these people, came there to jump. And Harold Sorensen, I think, set the hill record prior to World War II of 185 or 187 feet, which was a long jump in them days. Lo and behold, a war came on, of course, and that stopped all that activity. And all of us skiers, that wasn't where I intended to go. My idea of being in war was being a fighter pilot. Well, it didn't turn out that way, so I ended up in the 10th Mountain Division. And my first platoon sergeant was Walter Prager. So when I arrived from basic training, Walter Prager was my first platoon sergeant. And I ended up spending a couple of years overseas with Harold Sorensen, who I admired as a young fella. after the war, well, during the war, this particular jump caved in. It was made out of a wooden in-run, and it caved in, so we had an engineer in the ski club who got things going again, along with Oral, and we built the jump that had moved out of the center of town to the edge of town at Scotty's Mountain, and Ryder Christensen was the person who was behind it all with Oral. They built what was known as Ryder Christensen Hill. And the same Ryder Christensen, back in 1939, he was an engineer in the mill, and he built a lift, and it was with a cable, and as I recall, he went up to Jackson, and many of you probably knew they had a lift up there that they used a shovel handle to pull you up, and but he had a cable with a bull wheel. It was all machined in the Oxford Paper Company, all for free on their time. It seemed the mill really cooperated, and these guys spent hours and were paid by the mill to build all this stuff. And the thing actually worked quite well. It was probably, I don't know, 300 or 400 feet long. I can't remember. Maybe it was a little longer than that. Not a very difficult slope. Because the war came on, and after the war, it was the wrong place and not big enough. They ended up selling it to Pineland Ski Club up Andover, and they moved it up and set it up. So it got used a few years up there. My early involvement in competitive skiing, of course, was in the high school ski program. And with all these Norwegians that came here, and the big competitors at the time were the colleges, mainly New Hampshire, Ted Curtis's crew from Maine, and the University of New Hampshire, Ed Blood. But the big skiers were supposedly the Dartmouth skiers, and at that time I can remember guys like John Litchfield from Auburn was on one of those teams, and Percy Rideout, and Sal Hanna, and the Shivers boys, and some really good skiers, Dick Durrance. First time I seen Dick Durrance was back in Lake Placid. And back them days, they had a 4-event meet. And most skiers were 4-event skiers then. Competitive skiers, that is. Dick came off in that 60-meter jump. The first time I seen him ski, and he got down into the dip. He made a couple, which I come to learn later was a Weddling. A couple of weddles and turned and stopped. Hardly, he got out on the flat. This was with jumping skis. Couldn't believe it. Still can picture him doing that in my mind. Somebody mentioned about, well, I guess it was Edith on the trip to Lake Placid. I can remember back when my first trip to Lake Placid as about a senior in high school. It used to take us around 11 or 12 hours drive from Rumford to get to Lake Placid. And the cars we had in the roads them days, and it was a thrill of a lifetime. If you got to go to Lake Placid, you got to go everywhere. And anyway, it was some pretty tough competitions them days. I look at the cross-country courses that we have today, 15 feet wide and prepared by grooming equipment that we had. Back then, you know, you had 90-degree angles, and sometimes you grabbed a tree to slow down and prayed a lot. And, I don't know how we survived it when I look back. And after service and during the war, I'll just jump around a little bit because I don't have anything prepared here, but we, well, of course, things kind of died during the war. My thoughts, which were on nothing but skiing, discovered girls, and in my tour of duty, I met the girl that I was to marry, and we've been married for over 40 years now. And I have to say that anything and everything I did in skiing was because of my wife. We had 3 children, and it was very difficult. And she allowed me to do what I did. It cost us a lot of money we couldn't afford, but we did it anyway, and I'm very grateful to her for letting this happen. I didn't ski the first year or so after I got out of the service, but then I started training and skiing, and they had the Nationals in Lake Placid in 1947, and that was, at that time they picked the team a year ahead, and they were going to pick 4 combined skiers and 1 cross country. Well, when I found that out, I got into a little higher gear with my training. I figured this is going to be pretty tough to make. Anyway, I did win the race in the national championship and made the Olympic team in 1948. I went to Switzerland. Well, we got over to Switzerland, and we thought we were in pretty good condition. I think it was about the second day we were out skiing. Ralph Townsend, who was a legend in skiing, had coached at Williams for years, and some of you people know quite well. He was one of the combined skiers on the team. We were out skiing, and we thought we were going along a pretty good clip. 3 Norwegians came by us and left us like we were standing still there. And I have to tell you that the skis we had then were made by Northland Manufacturing Company. They were solid hickory, and we had what they call a bear trap binding in that folded up with a strap on top, and that kept your feet in the bindings. I still have a pair of those skis at home. And one of those skis weighs more than 2 skis we're using now, plus the boots. And we were pushing them around them days. Well, the Swedes showed up in 1948, and they had developed what they call a Limex cross-country skis. It was made out of laminated birch, and they came with a Rotafella binding, which was a 2-piece pin binding at the time, and lighter boots. And they had developed what we commonly use in cross-country for wax, Swix wax. They had all this, but nobody else had it. Of course, they won everything. And it came in 1950. They were supposed to have the World Championships in Lake Placid. And like Roger says, it doesn't snow here. So I was on the U.S. team at the time, but I hadn't arrived at Lake Placid yet. And, I couldn't get off from work as early as some of the other fellows, and they let me come 4 or 5 days late. And I called up Berger Tonson, who was our coach, and that's when I first learned there was no snow in Lake Placid. They had a crew out looking for snow. Doug Burkett, who was president of the Eastern Ski Association at the time, Bill Halsey, that skied for Dartmouth, he was captain of the Dartmouth ski team. And I said, well, we got all kinds of snow. We had a couple of feet of snow on the ground. And they were somewhere around North Conway at the time. To make a long story short, they came to Rumford, and we ended up holding the cross-country portion of the World Championships in Rumford, Maine in 1950. Once they decided to hold it there, we had 48 hours to get everything ready. And these booklets here, and there's a letter there that Phil Marks, who was president of the ski club at the time, wrote describing how they did this. It was a big thing for the town, and I can remember we had lots of snow, and we had good snow during the meet, and all the skiers were housed in private homes, and they'd ski right from their homes right down Congress Street. You know, back in the days, they kind of didn't fuss too much with the road, didn't use a lot of salt and so forth. Well, then it went on, and got to go to Oslo, where I think Gene was in Oslo in 1952, as I recall. Or were you? No. Well, anyway, we went to the Olympics in Oslo, and then I was appointed American member of the Federation International Ski and Cross Country Committee in 1953, and got really involved in the development of Nordic skiing in this country, and started training camps and real tryout systems the year of the competition. Some of those things are still going on. And then Squaw Valley put a bid in for the 1960 Olympics. Being an American member of that committee, they appointed me as chief of race. I went to Squaw Valley to make a feasibility study to see if they could do it. And the area I picked in the valley was quite a good area, but by the time the Olympics came on, when I first went there was 6 lodges in the valley. By the time the Olympics came around, there was 360 of them. So my cross-country trails were not there anymore. I ended up going down around Lake Tahoe, 17 miles from Squaw Valley, in the Kenny Creek area, and that's where we held the cross-country races. I was out there about 5 years ago. We did several things there that were first. One of them was we color-coded our courses out there. We used these paint sprayers and sprayed different colored paint on the trees so we could follow the network. And the FIS adopted a color coding system after that. And they're still using it today for the different courses that they use. Also in Europe, you know, they'd have 1,000 alpinis which would go and tramp out the course and ski in the tracks and one thing and another. We didn't have any alpinis in this country, so we had to come up with some system to do all this work. I got out there, and you know, that warm California sun, you'd get up in the morning and you couldn't bust that snow with a sledgehammer. By noon, you'd sink in places up to your knees. You know. So we had to come up with some kind of a system to prepare the snow. And I wrote to all the rototiller companies. There wasn't a country trying to get somebody interested in developing something that could pulverize the snow for us. I ended up with a little machine shop in Concord, New Hampshire, of all places. I can't remember how I got a line on this guy, but they built a pulverizer using a 40 horsepower Wisconsin motor with a belt off in the shaft. It was actually a grain flail chopper like the farmers use. The finger's about 4 inches long, with a little curve on the end. And he put one together, and going to fly it out for the pre-games in 1959. And he put it on a plane in Boston on a Thursday, and it got to Chicago, but nobody worked Saturday and Sunday. We got it on a Monday, but the pre-games were on Saturday and Sunday. So we did get to try it out, but it worked out pretty well. We spent 6 weeks experimenting with it, and we ended up making 2 more, and we had 6 Tucker Snowcats. We pulled those 3 pulverizers, and the pilot model we improved on, and we used that one in the stadium area and the other 2 out on the courses. And pulling those with the Snowcats, it took us 7 hours to prepare the 25-kilometer loop for the 50-kilometer race on the 1960 Olympics. So that was the first. We had made up roles, and it was the first time that any mechanical equipment had been used to prepare courses. And of course, now they have state-of-the-art stuff, as you know. And also, it was the first time that we used IBM came in and put out the results on the computers, and we had electronic timing with hand timing backup. And one of the biggest problems was of getting enough people to run the races out there in California, because there wasn't all that many people knowledgeable in cross-country. Of course, they didn't all have to ski, but I remember the Luces came out from Farmington, and people I knew in the service. I spent more time trying to round up a crew to run the races, and actually it took over 300 people to run the races like that. Well, I've been involved in skiing most of my life. Like I said, it took a lot of time. I decided early that I didn't want to try to make a living out of skiing. It was pretty hard to do then. There was never enough skiers anyway. It would be my hobby for life, and it has been. I've had some wonderful experiences. It got me all around the world and met a lot of wonderful people. And I guess my biggest enjoyment out of it all was the junior programs that I worked with, and the kids that came out of it, and what they did with their lives afterward. I guess that are the main things. I could go on and tell you about all kinds of experiences that I've had in skiing, but I'd take all afternoon to do that. Some of the crazy things we did in skiing. My wife will tell you, I worked for H.B. Hood after I got out of the service, and I left them in 1955 when I went to work for the California Olympic Committee to get ready for the 1960 Olympics. But I used to still race and love to race, and Hoppy Morgan, Andover had a pretty good program up there, and they always had some good races. But I couldn't always get off for the day of their race, so Hoppy had always given me a late number and hoped that I'd make the race. Well, I made most of them. I had to deliver my milk route first, and then cash up and rush to Andover, which was 20 miles away. And I only missed one race in about 10 years that I raced up there. Did the same thing at the Nationals at Berlin in around 1951, I think it was. I had to deliver my milk route, and it was on a Saturday, and we had to drive to Berlin, which was over 50 miles. And, my wife had my clothes ready. She had a meal. I got home from the milk route, jumped in the car, changed clothes, ate, and guess what the wax was, and just made the race, and ran the Nationals, and got beat by 15 seconds. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wendell. We'll take a break for lunch, and after lunch, Avon Hilton's going to come up and talk a little bit about this ski and the significance of it and the signatures on this ski. During lunch, I'm going to show some videos, and I have one in particular that I'll show if people are interested. It's called Legends of American Skiing, 1849 to 1940. None of it includes Maine, unfortunately, but I thought it might be interesting for those people who are interested in this particular project. This comes out of, I believe it comes out of the New Hampshire effort, and you may be interested in seeing this. Also, before I get started though, I want to show a video I have that Oscar would be interested in. So grab your lunch, and then Dana's going to do, we're going to sit around and just talk about different stories this afternoon. What?
Rolando Harriman's office there in Phillips Times and mechanical department. A couple of boys.
Okay, so you're going the other way. Let me see what she wants to do.
Dad, how do you shut this off? I faded it about 50 times.
Auburn and the developer of one of the outlets there, initially an amateur instructor and then a professional instructor at Sugarloaf, and a long-term.
Thank you, Dan. Well, anyhow, folks, I didn't start skiing until I was quite old, and after I get married, and that was back in 1946. And then we had a few children, 2 to be exact, and that slowed us down. So probably late 40s before we got into skiing. And I get into the Lasky Ski Club. Everybody's talking about ski clubs. This is where we get started. So, well, I got a little slope in front of the house. The more I looked at it, somebody gave me an old car. Got the ski club members, and we got some poles, and we put up some rope shows, and I bored all the old warp and whatnot from all the farmers around, spliced it together. We had ourselves a ski tow. We put on some lights, we ran it 3 nights a week. Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Friday we was getting ready to go to the mountain skiing. Monday we had to recuperate from the mountain. So anyhow, as we get into it, people wanted more and more information on skiing. And I went to take an instructor's exam at the Wildcat. And they asked me why I wanted to be an instructor. I told them what I thought they wanted to know. Apparently that wasn't what they wanted to know, because I didn't pass that exam. I don't know why, but shortly after that, I think it was the next year or so, I did take one and got that. We had the amateur instructors program, which this gentleman here was talking about. There's some badges, triangles, certified, qualified amateur instructor. And then I got a lot of the ski club members, taught them to teach, got them into taking their exams, and then we had a whole slew of amateur instructors teaching down there at Holdham's Hip. And we taught, and we taught. That's all we done, just run a ski school. Money-wise, I'd like to get a donation of a buck. If they'd had it, they didn't, fine. Just enough to pay for the lights and gas. And then what money was left over, we'd throw a big bash in the summertime. Well, then Lost Valley come in. This is how this ski tow happened to close out. Lost Valley come in. All my instructors we had went out to the big areas. Of course, I couldn't compete with them, but that's about as long as we run. So other than that, then there was a big, remember one time the newspaper, here in the Lewiston paper, front page, this is back to 1959. And there's, Oakland family has their own ski slope. You can see all my instructors, and so we did start way back then. And then as way Dana said, after that we went to Sugarloaf. The wife and I were both teaching professionally at Sugarloaf, and here's pictures of some of the old ski instructors that we had up there. That's my oldest Dana back in here. And my daughter Debbie, she just stuck around now. And that's about the size of it. And then we used to give basic and standard uniform tests. And these uniform tests were quite a thing back then. I think if I can find the right little card here. I can't find it real off quick, but anyhow, that was started as a proficiency test. for people skiing the Swiss Alps or Austria and whatnot. They teach them that they could do certain things, they give them a chance to go further up the mountain, so on and so forth. And then Eastern Amateur Ski Association adopted this thing back in early 1900s. And that is when we come in to give them, we had 3 tests that we gave. They were basic, with some snowplow turns and so on and so forth. And they gave us a regular routine of what to teach. When you come down to the slope, this here is one of the old signs I had on the slope, step-by-step method of instruction. And this goes back to the very early ages of it. This is what you, just the way you progress them along. And that's about when we started, what we have to do. I get to go home and see my bride now. Have a good afternoon. Nice to meet you people. Yeah.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you, Don. Before we get going to the afternoon program, I'd like to bring up Avon Hilton. He's going to talk a little bit about the signatures on this ski and the significance of the ski, and hopefully also about the Dutch roll. Right?
Talk with my wife. Well, you know, Jeff, just to give you a little bit of background, Pleasant Mountain, all are quite proud of the fact that that became a ski area in 1938. But the first time I skied it was when Win Robbins was telling about the Jack Spratt Trail in the CCC, and the first time I skied it was in a race in February of 1936. But in that same year, or I could almost say a couple of weeks after this particular race, they had a snow train to Freiburg. At that point in time, I was 15 years old. I skied on a pair of 7-foot ash semi-ridgetop skis, no steel edges. And I took the snow train from Union Station, Portland to Freiburg, and got second place with all the adults from the whole greater Portland area, North Conway area, Auburn, Lewiston, and got myself a Moore Parker. Moore, I think they were made in Newport, New Hampshire. Is that right, Wynn? Yeah, only I didn't have any fur on mine. But that following fall, they decided to put on a ski-style show in the Strand Theater on Congress Street in Portland. And they had firms represented such as Benoit's, Filene's, I need my wife's help this way, Porteous Mitchell, this sort of thing. And I was picked as one of the backdrop or background people, wore my ski packer, stood in the back of a simulated snow train, and I found out that as participants, so to speak, we'd be allowed to watch the movie. And the movie, the main attraction was Deanna Durbin, and don't ask me the name of the show, but I think it was her first movie. The second movie was the ski movie known as Slalom. It had a big, tall, skinny guy and a little short, dwarfy guy who were fantastic skiers. One of them was Guzzy Lashner, who was also an Olympic skier, or a former Olympic skier. But I can't tell you what the other chap's name was. And attended every one of those shows because I could come in early through the side door and watch this. And I was intrigued with the execution of the Dutch roll, which both of these guys would do. And after 6 days of watching this, I figured that I had this in my mind mentally enough to try it. So remember, Pleasant Mountain still wasn't a ski area, but on the lower portion of what is now the main slope, I decided that I had it in my mind enough to try and executed my first Dutch roll with no fall. And I've enjoyed doing them ever since. Now, in 1939, I went to work for King and Dexter Company, taking Bill Dow's place in Monument Square in Portland. And I had the previous season been employed seasonally by the James Bailey Ski Hut. The mate to this ski I was demonstrating in such and such a manner to a friend of mine, and the ski decided to break off, so I held 2 pieces of ski in my hand. When I went to work for King and Dexter Company, I brought the ski in and scraped it down. This was a Dartmouth Outing Club ski, Hanover, New Hampshire. And I began to collect signatures. I have famous names on this ski, such as Wes Markle, if anybody ever heard of him. Now this is 1940, you understand, 39 and 40. Other names such as Tony Mass, Hamish Schneider, Herbert Schneider, Strand Mickelson, Franz Kessler, Arten Lekang, somebody mentioned him, and a whole host of jumpers that were in the Boston Winter Sports Show that fall. Well, for example, and here's Peter Limmer. Now, after acquiring a lot of these signatures at that Winter Sports Show, as well as the accumulation of names in the greater Portland area, we went to a little beer hall place. Jamaica Plain, would that sound right? I sat next to Peter Limmer, who was famous for his boots and hiking shoes and so forth. And when the waiter came to me, I said, well, I'll have a chicken sandwich and a glass of milk. In a beer hall? Well, I think they sent out for it. Well, what the heck, I was only 19, 20 years old. But Peter turned to me and he says, milk? He says, in Austria, where I come from, he says, kids no longer have milk after they get to be 3 years old. We drink beer. That didn't change anything. I just started drinking beer 5 years ago. And I'll be 69 in a few days, excuse me. I'd like to say years. So, what shall I say? I've got names like Carl Shumway, Herb White, Sig Bookmeyer. And does anyone remember the cartoon book that Max Bassis put out? 1939? Win, of course. Yeah, I've got it too, Win. Benarabisca. Oh my gosh. Homer Haywood. Now here's a name. Don O'Brien. Not very well known. I see Rita shaking her head yes. I'm sure Wes remembers him too. Yes. Ran Cookland O'Brien's garage. But Don was like an Iron Man. If I climbed Pleasant Mountain and ran the Jack Spratt Trail twice in one day, I think that was 1.25 miles, wasn't it, Win? Something like that, yeah. But Don O'Brien would do this 6 times in one day. That made me tired just to hear him tell me about it. So many names. So many. The thing that bothers me is that, here's a name. Ben Meyer, a flexible flyer. This was kind of cute. Ben Meyer came into King and Dexter one day, and he says, I'm Ben Meyer, a flexible flyer. He said, I don't know a thing about skiing or skis, but I've got a whole bunch of samples out in the car I'd like to show you and see what you think of them. They're made and distributed by the S.L. Allen Company out of Pennsylvania. And one of the models, of course, was a split-kind ski, which they imported. Max Wheeldon is another old-time name. In fact, Stan Bailey hired Max Wheeldon to set them up in the ski business for both clothing and equipment. George Burgess, several years deceased. George was a president and a vice president of the Ski Instructors Association of Maine. The Dow brothers, all 4 of them were on this ski. Frank, Bill, Bud, and Dick. I'm trying to pick out some names that might ring bells. Gene Adams was a very well-known photographer in the area, took a lot of ski pictures. But there's so many of these names, the people have since passed on. Yes. Wally Lovell. Wally Lovell was the first president of the Ski Instructors Association of Maine. And not to go any further, I think it's time to cease, but I would like to put this ski in the hands of Jeff Beattie. For anyone's, future posterity. I'd like to say prosperity, but posterity would be more correct. I also, if I could take a second, I really ought to have more than one set of hands. I'd like to leave, thank you, Wynn. I'd like to leave these old-time ski posters with Jeff. Advertising the Ski Instructors Association of Maine and the Flexible Flyer split-kind ski. And I don't want to overdo this. All right, those are all the same. S.L. Allen Company, right? Yeah, okay, yeah. No, that doesn't ring a bell, but Stub Taylor was interviewed by a chap representing the Sunday Telegram. Now, these can't all be the same ones. There's more. Oh, here we go. Still a flexible flyer.
Looks like Gretchen Fraser.
Does it say Maine Ski what?
Yeah, could be. Could be, Al. You recognize her?
No, I don't.
But I wouldn't be surprised with what that was. A drawing of Gretchen Fraser. Looks like her sweater. So I'd like to donate those too, Jeff. But I started to mention Stub Taylor's remark on an interview regarding the skis that Amos Winter picked up for him, because he ran the H.G. Winter and Son Company in Kingfield. And Amos asked me to pick out the skis. He didn't say who for, but one of my boys. So if I'm not mistaken, since Stubb refers to the flexible flyer ski, he thought was made in South Paris. It was made instead by the S.L. Allen Company in Pennsylvania. And this Ben Meyer with flexible flyer introduced this ski to me, of which I bought many, many pairs and sold many, many pairs in the greater Portland area for many years. With that, I'll say somebody else's turn, Jeff.
Dave, I want to thank you. Thank you very much. I promise that this ski, along with everything else, will go someplace. Right now, we're trying to work on a place to put all this stuff, and right now it's at my house down in Massachusetts, but at some point in time, there's going to be someplace up here in Maine that we're going to keep it all, and so hopefully Amanda and her kids will be able to remember all you guys in the early days of skiing. But you can't get off the hook. You still got to tell me about the Dutch roll.
She doesn't know what that is.
Oh,
Did you explain it?
oh, I'm sorry. Well, Dutch roll, as I understand it, is from a skating term. Is that right, Win?
That rolled on me, I never got that far. Part of my frustration.
No, all right, okay. A Dutch roll is executed on the inside ski. It's done by raising the outside ski of the turn. And they can be linked down the hill.
Royal Christie.
All right, Royal Christie is another
Yep.
definition of the Dutch roll. I'm reminded of, for some reason, the
Skiing that they're doing down there.
I read this about Otto Schneeb's giving his lectures. And in this particular case, he was in the Boston area. And after the lecture and the movies that he put on, he allowed people to ask questions. So I guess they came right up on the stage and talked to him. And one lady said, well, now, Otto, she said, I'm coming down this trail and I encounter all of these rocks and bare spots, mud, this sort of thing. Now, she says, under those conditions, what do I do? And Otto looked at her and he says, stem like hell, or take off the damn skis and walk. That was Otto, all right. Now, this one occurred during the examination for ski teachers on the backside of Cranmore Mountain in 1948. This chap, I don't recall his name, but he was an instructor at Black Mountain. And I guess he thought he had trapped the old master somehow or other. Or maybe it was just a bald-faced question. But he says, Hannes, he says, on a double pole jump turn, he said, you've planted the poles and you've sprung in the air to go around the poles. Now, he says, when you reach the apex of this jump, he said, all of a sudden, the poles sink a half a foot or more in the snow. He says, what do you do? Hannes looked at him and he says, you fall flat on your face. What else?
I guess most people know the story about Otto. I think it applies here very well.
Stand up and tell it next to him.
Skiing, something like skiing is not a
We gotta
sport.
get you on this here.
Skiing is not a sport. Skiing is a way of life.
Right.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah. You know, the other thing too, Al, is
the pleasure that is derived from skiing, no matter what the ability. Doesn't matter whether you're a beginner. Think of the thrill of mastering the first snowplow turn as compared to doing your 14,000th parallel Christie. I'm sure that the 14,000th parallel Christie doesn't hold anywhere near the thrill that that first snowplow turn holds. So no matter what the stage, the thrill of accomplishment and enjoyment of skiing is just unbounded.
Ewan, thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Dana, you're taking over from here.
Let me take the liberty, Avon. Let me take the liberty of adding to that and give you my own version of the first thrill. And it came when I stepped onto into a bear trap binding, and the pair of skis had been left at my house by a teacher who had been on the Bates ski team, who was teaching in town. He'd gone away in the Christmas vacation and left the ski there. I had done nothing but go straight down a hill, of course, and took these pair of skis up, which of course much too long. I was in grammar school, put those bear traps on and stepped on that ski, and that ski turned. And it was the first time I'd ever had the sensation of a ski turning under me. I'm still practicing, and by gosh, it's still a thrill, and so forth.
Right.
I received a letter.
Dana,
Yes.
on the burner that used to tell us don't edge on the slippery. Was it?
Was it what?
Vernon, the instructor of posture, would tell us don't edge on the slippery, you know, when you make a turn.
That's right. Don't edge.
Burn a rock back in?
Don't edge on the slippery.
Edge on the slippery. I want to read a letter which came from Jack Baxter. Jack Baxter, if some of you people remember him, I'm sure that some of you certainly do. Jack was in the Pittsfield area, and as I will read this, I'll tell you a little something about it because it ties in other names, other people that we have heard about today, and we'll see the reference. Thank you for your recent letter and the enclosures. I had sent him a copy of the articles that he had written when he first started to develop, along with Bud Dow, the area up in Pittsfield. And Janie Woodcock, one of the gals who was a classmate of my daughter's at Bates, had gone in and collected them from the newspaper office, made copies of them, and then sent them to me, and I made copies and sent them to Jack, so that he could know and see what we were sort of talking about, in a sense of gathering historical material. Thank you for your recent letter and so forth. I will circulate them among my children who were there at the time. Also glad to hear that the tramway safety law is alive and well. That was our bill. Well, our bill, engendered initially by the Ski Council. Ed Sullivan was president at the time. Ed was going to be here and say a word about it. Called up on the phone and saying that he had a detached retina. Commented on the phone that not only did Jack Baxter do his part, but Senator Murray Thurston, Mike Thurston also was involved in getting the bill passed in the legislature. And Jack goes on to say that I took a majority leader of the House. As majority leader of the House, I didn't want to be in a bargaining position to get other personal bills passed. Figured that one was like motherhood in the flag, and so no one could use it as a weapon against me in my position as majority leader. See, the only one that he put forth in that session. I started skiing in the early 30s and went through all phases of skiing, bindings, boots and clothes. I remember feeling very guilty for buying the most expensive boots on the market, single lace hand Schneiders for $25. When I moved to Pittsfield in the early 50s, I looked for a hill, found the pinnacle wooded, but obviously a slope of some sort. Harry Pollard was a friend, and there's another whole story about Harry Pollard and his involvement, which we'll track down at some time, because he shows up here and there and was very instrumental in a lot of things that went on early. So when he visited us in the spring, I asked him to take a look at it with a guy named Dow. He said, "You mean," and his writing looks like Keeler. Did he have another nickname which I can't quite?
Kaka.
Okay. Taka?
Kaka.
Taka, okay. We looked it over. I got the Kiwanis.
That was sort of the secret nickname, though.
Okay, I bet.
You know, everybody didn't know.
I got the Kiwanis Club to give us some money, and we went ahead. Bud was the chief engineer. I brought a gas engine from my plant, and this was Jack Baxter of the Baxter Canning Company. Brought a gas engine from my plant in Heartland, and Bud invented a rope tow. He put together a rope tow, as other people were doing, I guess. A hot dog stand from downtown was donated as a base hut. We brought a lot of kids to ski who became racers, and a lot of adults who became addicts and are running it now. And their kids are learners. And this young lady who had given me the information now is teaching her youngsters and the other people, and that slope is still being carried on. And I can't remember what they're charging for that day. It's 50 cents a dollar or something or other. It's still a very, very low fee. Right around that time, Harry and I climbed Winter's Way with Amos. When things got organized, I sent the company's trucks up to help build the road and bought 10 of the original shares of stock. As in the enclosed card, and I have a card here, which is titled Tony Matt Instructing a Slalom Course at Mount Cranmore, New Hampshire. And Jack says, Harvey Dow Gibson, the father of Cranmore, was a Bowdoin graduate, which I had known before. He brought Schneider over, and Schneider brought Tony Matt, who had won everything in Europe and was doing likewise here when he arrived, particularly, of course, the Inferno, where he shushed the head wall, either by design or by accident. Gibson said he'd give the Bowdoin ski team free racing instructions for a week. I think that was the spring of 1940. That is the team watching Tony in this photo here. I am second from the left. Tony was appalled at what bad skiers we were, so his solution was to take us 3/4 of the way up the mountain and run us through a 12-gate flush morning and afternoon for 7 days, plus schussing the mountain 4 or 5 times. By the end of it, we all were doing pretty well, but we could never beat him to the bottom. Then he goes on and he wants to see me when he comes through Brunswick this summer, and I'm really looking forward to that meeting. Now, the other thrill that I got a few days ago was having talked to Arel Legere on the telephone, and then 2 days later I get a packet of well, I guess the whole program and what went on for about 7 or 8 years up at the Fort Fairfield Winter Carnival, starting in 1930 and the pamphlet's running through until 1950. And I'm flipping the pages through here, and what do I find? I think you can see a relatively small figure there. It's Aurel Leger, 11-year-old jumper from Rumford, Maine. This is up in the carnival in Fort Fairfield, and here is what it says. Aurel Leger, only 11 years old, and about as big as a jackrabbit, is really a great big strip of chain lightning done up in a small package. Last year, he was a sensation at the Rumford Carnival and was able to make a leap over the big jump of 96 feet with perfect grace and form. This year, Urel's parents have consented to allow him to come to Fort Fairfield to show us how it is done, and he will be here February the 14th and 15th. Urel wears a great big sunny smile and you just can't liking him. He has it. Give him a good time and let him know that we appreciate his coming. Aurel Leger. What we thought we would do in talking this over with Jeff and a few other people, thought we would go around and hear from people who haven't as yet had something to say about their involvement of skiing, particularly happy situations that they've got a kick out of, or unusual situations, or whatever it may be, actually, that you care to say about this sport of ours. And I think that we'll go right down the back row and start over here. Helen, do you have something else that you want to add to?
You want a happy note or a sad note? Oh. No.
You can say anything you wish, my dear.
It was a way of life for our family. We started in that farmington, or I did. This was before the children arrived. And I would go from ski patrol to instructor, learning all the way. And then I was involved at Rangeley when they opened up, and then went over to Sugarloaf and was on the ski patrol there. So our children have come along and are doing the same thing, and it pleased me to have my son Jeff and my daughter Dee Dee, who was at graduation day, and she'll be here later. I think it has guided them through life, and I can remember Dee Dee at Titcomb Slope, her first race, coming down to the gate, and she'd done very well to the last gate, and she missed it. And she came over to me crying, and, "Mommy, they call me a dirty name." And I said, "What happened?" They said, "Disqualified." That's great.
Okay. Connie.
We've got to, you want me to move the camera around? Because I like to keep these people on record.
Can you
I'm
do
doing
that?
this camera just because someday, I want to go back to that to refer to it.
How about them coming up here then?
Yeah, that'd be better.
Just as soon, Connie, please, just for a minute. Now look, you can speak for yourself, ma'am. Don't you want to?
You could,
My involvement has been strictly through him, so
yeah, but you could have them file by Dana.
Pardon?
Just face the camera and give their name and continue on just to show who's here.
Well, Jeff, can you pick it up there, or would you want to?
Or would you want to?
Why don't they file, can't they file by
Let them all have a piece of the spotlight. Come on.
Why don't you want to shake
There you
his
go.
hand? Shaking his hand?
Yeah.
No, it's your husband.
Yeah,
Mine.
that's right. You've been involved in this with all of us here for...
You know, they can always cut it out too.
yeah,
Well, that puts it right at ease, Sue.
No, I really, as I said, my involvement in skiing has been definitely through him, and so I will refer to him.
I'm not sure it's safe to give you the real story behind Sunday River getting started with that camera going. If you promise to edit it out, I will tell you.
Start with your name so we'll have this on here.
Yeah, Mike Thurston. When we started to raise money for Sunday River, the stock proposal said that we had to put 90% of the money in escrow unless we could raise $105,000 in 1 year. Well, we sold stock, and Roger Page told you how difficult that is. We got to 50,000, then Gould Academy bought $10,000 worth of stock. They drove a hard bargain. In return for $10,000, they got free skiing in perpetuity for all the students, the faculty, and the Board of Trustees. Thank God that record got lost somewhere, but they didn't do it anymore. Anyway, then we were up to 65 and we couldn't go any farther. So we went to the SBA. And believe it or not, they agreed to send a man up to look at it. In the meantime, we'd pursued a fellow named Charles Bartlett, who was quite overweight, a lot of money, and best of all, he had a big bulldozer. The day that a small businessman arrived, the road wasn't even complete. We had to walk half a mile up the road. It was hot in August. Charlie Bartlett was there with us. He refused to walk up the road. But anyway, we walked up, and the SBA representative said, "Is this a good amount to put a ski lift on?" And we said, "Of course it is." So then we walked back down the hill. We got down to the brook, and Charles Bartlett said, "Well, I think this might taste pretty good to you fellas. You look pretty hot." Warm, that is. He went down the brook and bought out a bottle of scotch. And so he sat in the shade and finished the bottle of scotch. And at that time, the SBA man thought it was a great idea to build a ski lift. He went back and proved it. Well, and we're in business.
That's the story of Sunday River.
But please edit that out.
Ma'am?
Oh, me? Well, I can tell what
Just
was
go
important to me.
first your name,
Yeah.
name, rank, serial number.
Name, rank, serial number. I'm Viola Hilton. I live in Raymond. But what was so important to me was when I was in the 7th, 8th grade, Lincoln Junior High School in Portland. And you know how insignificant freshmen are compared to seniors in high school back in those days, if you remember back in those days. And I was permitted, because I was such a tomboy and I chased around everywhere my brother went, my older brother, that I learned to ski fairly well. And to be permitted to attend the Deering High School Ski Club ski trips that were held weekends at Douglas Hill, boy, I'm telling you, that was really something.
Thank you.
You're not going to cover it all.
No, I'm not going to cover it all.
Miss Claire,